Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of TEPSA Presents. I'm your host, Todd Neslony, the Director of Culture and Strategic Leadership here at the Texas Elementary Principals and Supervisors Association. We are thrilled every month to bring you a different topic with thought leaders from around the world to share their brilliance. And I am really excited about this month's conversation because these are two leaders that I know personally and love and adore them. And I'm so excited that you all get to learn from them. And so I'll let them introduce themselves. Allyson, do you want to go first?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for having us. I'm Allyson Apsey. I was a principal of all levels in Michigan for 19 years, and then our family up and moved to Georgia, and I took advantage of that opportunity to travel the country and work with educators from coast to coast. I started a blog in 2015 called Serendipity in Education that led to a few books, and one of them I got to co-author with the amazing Jessica Gomez, our book Lead with Collaboration. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about that. So I'm really excited. I'm also a mom. I have two sons, age 21 and 17. I know you can't believe it because I look so young. And a husband and a couple puppies. And right now I'm in California.
Love it. Jessica, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, so my name is Jessica Gomez, and I am in Southern California. So I've been in education for 24 years. I was a principal for 14 years. I just left the principalship at the end of the last school year, and I'm now the director of continuous improvement and accountability in Menifee Union School District, which is in Southern California, so halfway to San Diego, kind of on that corridor. And I too am a mom. My son is 18, my daughter is 15, and I'm married and have a puppy also. And just super excited to be here and share our work with you all. This was my first book. Allison's an expert at it. Was my first book co-authoring, so it was an amazing opportunity to share our passion. When we were both administrators. This was something that was near and dear to our heart. So we're really excited to be able to share about it.
I love it. Well, I've read the book and it is absolutely fantastic. So definitely highly recommend this. And I know we've recommended it on our social media channels as well over at TEPSA. But I'd love to kind of start the conversation with, you call this book Lead with Collaboration. And so obviously collaborating is something that as a leader, you have found really valuable or has been important to you because otherwise you wouldn't want to write a book about it. Mm-hmm. So when did this become something that you became really passionate about? Allyson, why don't you start?
That's a great question. So I think it's in who we are as leaders. Like even when, Jessica and I collaborate and the product that we come up with is so much better because of our collective effort than it would be individually. And we know, like, we hear about, John Hattie's, the research that he found on collective efficacy, and he certainly isn't the first one. But the idea of collective efficacy is really a firm foundation, a firm belief that we can do great things when we work as a team.
Right.
And that's how we can move student achievement. We can move any initiative we have in our schools forward. And I had a leader who pushed back on me and said, Allyson, we don't need to collaborate around everything. Like, we don't need to have a meeting about when we're going to have fire drills. And that's true. Jessica and I are real clear. Like, we don't mean have a meeting about everything. We actually mean don't have a meeting unless it requires collaboration. But even when fire drills happen, can benefit from collaboration, because I scheduled them during state testing one year. Had I thrown out the schedule and said, hey, you guys, can you look at this and see if you see any conflicts, collaboration, then we would have avoided having the fire drill during state testing. So we just want to be careful that our book is Lead with Collaboration. It's about staff meetings. But our point is that don't have a staff meeting unless it requires collaboration. And you don't have to have a meeting to have collaboration.
I love that. Jessica, what about you? When did this become something that was pretty important to you?
I think kind of like Allyson, I think it's just kind of innate in us. I always share the story that I went into teaching to be the teacher that I needed as a child, right? And then I went into the principalship to be the principal that I needed as a teacher. And as a teacher, I think you understand the importance of having a team and being able to depend on your team to do the work and push the work forward. And that's exactly how I've always kind of seen it, because we always say this in our presentations, Allyson and I, the smartest person in the room is a room.
Mhm.
Right. So that is 100% true. And I never lead from a perspective of I know everything, so I'm going to stand up here and I'm going to and listen to me because I have all the answers. It's like, no, here is the conversation we need to have. And we have a room full of very experienced educators who have perspectives from different perspectives that will help me see things differently from a leader's perspective. And so I have just seen the power of what happens when teams come together, like grade level teams come together, department teams come together and produce some pretty amazing products. So now imagine when you have all the teachers together and you have something to, you have a big task that you need to conquer and you need lots of perspectives, that it just leads to a fabulous outcome. If done in a good way, in a correct way.
Yeah, definitely.
It could go south. It could go south real quick.
Very quickly. Well, and I want to start with the hard questions first, the more quote unquote negative ones, because I think sometimes when people hear this idea of collaboration, you get a little pushback sometimes, whether it's the administrator who's not willing to let go of some things, or the teacher who's like, I don't want to collaborate. I just want to come and exist. So the first question I have is, when we think about this idea of collaboration and we think about, as the school leader, I want to do this more with my staff, but I'm getting pushback. Like, where do you encourage them to begin, Jessica?
So I would say I would start even with my leadership team. Like, the leadership team is so important on your school site, and be vulnerable. I think it's okay to be transparent. It's okay to be vulnerable and share with your leadership team and say, hey, this is what I want to accomplish. I want us to have more voices in the room. I want us all to take ownership of this, because in what is it, Beth and Shelley Burgess's book, right? People are less likely to break down, right? What's the quote, Allyson?
They're less likely to tear down things that they help create.
Correct. And so when you think about it from that perspective, everyone wants to have a say. I would say you want your voice heard. And for me, I would start with, okay, if you don't want to bring it to the whole staff, start with your leadership team and be vulnerable and ask them, like, let them know that this is what you want to do. This is what you want to create. Have them help you do that, because they could be a conduit for you as well.
Absolutely.
Well, and Allyson, my question for you then is, say I'm an assistant principal listening to this conversation, and I'm like, I want to collaborate. Like, I've even read y'all's book. I'm ready. But my principal isn't, and can I lead some collaboration without them having to lead the way? Or how do they navigate that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And sometimes it's Michael Bungay Stainer talks about drip irrigation. Sometimes it's like drip, drip, drip. Like, could you grab a hold as the assistant principal, like one little piece of the staff meeting, and make that collaborative, and then reflect with the principal, with your principal colleague of how that went and what the staff response was to that. And one thing that we talk about in the book is the power of sending out a draft agenda for staff meetings. So creating the agenda, sending out as a draft and saying, hey, does anybody have any input? Like 99% of the time, people are going to be like, no. But that one person who always has some input might give it to you before the staff meeting, which would be really helpful to the productivity of the staff meeting. And also those singletons, those, the specialist teachers, or the people who don't really feel like they have a place in the staff meetings, might be able to look at the agenda and say, I'm not sure where I fit in here. And you could have an opportunity to have a conversation before the staff meeting about the value they're going to add to the different agenda items.
I love that. And that's giving them some voice in it as well, because I think exactly what you said, you may only have one person respond to that agenda, but that's the one person who needs the agenda the most. So as an administrator, we've got to try to be meeting all the needs that we can. And that's a great way to do that. Well, I guess, when we start talking about this, obviously people are going to listen and go, okay, I get it. I'm ready. Like, give me something. I need an idea. Like, how can I get my team collaborating? What's a fun way to do it? What's one of your favorites? Like, that kind of thing. Jessica, what's one of your favorite ways to do collaboration?
Oh my gosh, let me think. Oh, there's so many ideas that we get. I just did a workshop just this past week at one of the county offices here in California, and one of the activities that we did was like the roll the dice, and you have a topic, right? So you have something to cover, and then you have some very there's six numbers on the die, and you have six questions that you might want that you maybe purposely strategically word so that they have some
Mhm.
conversation around it. So you can make it fun and roll that die, and whatever one it lands on, like that's the question that they're going to discuss. So it allows for a fun way, and you know,
Mhm.
you have the blow up die where you can get them at Party City, and make it fun, or you have the small ones. But that's a great way to have some deeper conversations around a particular topic, and then you can have control of what those questions are so that you can help guide the conversation for where you want it to go.
Well, and what I love most about that is sometimes when groups of teachers get together and you ask them to talk about a topic and they're not really sure where to begin, it can very quickly veer off course. And I think having, like you said, those six questions in advance that'll keep them on course no matter which number they roll really eliminates some of that drifting that doesn't purposefully happen all the time. So it's just like, I don't know where to begin. So what'd y'all have for lunch today? And so I love that. That's such an easy way to do that as well. Allyson, what about you? What's one that you love?
I love what Jessica just shared because it's so adaptable to any topic. It's a strategy that you can use. And sometimes as principals, we're afraid to use the same strategy a few times, but people I mean, not every single time, but you could reuse the strategy and just modify it a little bit differently. One of the activities that we have in the book is called Show and Tell Bingo. And it's a
Oh, yes.
kind of a bingo board. The only bingo part of it is there's no bingo, but you just win if you get across, diagonal,
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
down. But there's three questions in a row and three questions down, and the questions can really be centered around any topic. So the idea is they have this bingo board, and it encourages that guided conversation again. So, for instance, maybe when you come back after winter break, you need to talk about reestablishing routines and procedures in the classroom. So we have a bingo board that has questions all about successful strategies for reestablishing those routines and procedures in different ways. So they can go around and get ideas from their colleagues. Once they have three in a row, they yell out bingo, and you could give them, a Hershey's Kiss, I don't know, or something. But just a fun and engaging way to just kind of generate that collaboration under those very specific goals of the meeting.
I love
And
that.
can I just add to that? I just did that actually too at the workshop that I did, Allison and Todd, with administrators. But I because Allison created the template and it's a Canva template, so we give you the link to be able to modify it and make it your own. And I modified the questions to be very specific to administrators. So like some of the questions were, what is a culture building idea for the month of December? That so they left, so they got some people left with some ideas like, oh, I didn't even think about the hot chocolate bar or whatever, right? Things of that nature. What are some ways that you show appreciation for your staff? And so they left with a lot of things that were pertinent to them as an administrator at this point in the year. So it can be used at any time of the year. And when they see purpose in that, when you make it intentional, then it doesn't just become some cheesy activity, right?
Yeah,
It
yeah.
becomes a very purposeful activity. And those administrators left with some really great ideas that they hadn't come in with.
And these templates and things, they're in your book, Lead with Collaboration, right? So when people get the book, they also get access to these Canva templates.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
I love that. Okay, so we're recording this conversation the first week of December. So somebody may be listening today going, I love this, but guys, half the year's already gone. Like I haven't been really having collaborative meetings. They've just been come and get information. Like, is it too late to change? Is it going to freak people out? Is it okay if I start implementing some stuff now or even in January when I come back? What do you say to that, Allyson?
It's never too late, right? As long as our heart is beating, we have a pulse, it is never too late. So I actually both Jessica and I changed the name of our staff meetings to imply the intention of the time to get together. So we called it collaboration time.
Mm.
And we did that in the middle of the year. I said, you guys, no more meetings. We're only coming together when we need the collective wisdom of all of us. And I started phrasing the agenda items as questions, just like we do for students. So it's really that whole like modeling best practices for students. And, they did think I was cheesy, which they normally did with everything at first. But then slowly it just became a way that we did things.
Yeah.
So it is definitely not too late.
Well, and I love even the little shift in the name change. Some people listening may think, oh, that's not really that big of a deal. But when somebody has a really strong connection with the way you called it, like if somebody has never had a good staff meeting and you're still calling your staff meeting, they may automatically hate it just because that's all they think of is all the bad experiences they've had. So I love just the name shift. Jessica, what about you? What advice do you have if somebody's like, is it too late to start?
I would say this is a perfect time. If you haven't been doing it, especially as we come back from a winter break, and talk about New Year's resolutions, right? So like, you know what? We have come back. I've done some reflection and I want to get out as much of our staff meetings as much as I want you to get out of this. So after doing some reflection and some learning over the break, right? This is what I really feel like we should be focusing towards. And I really, again, you can go to your leadership team as well. It's like, hey, like this is really what I'm considering. How do you suggest I do that? Because I'm sure that they will give you lots of feedback on how to roll that out at your particular school. But I think it's a great time to do it where you come back and it's okay to be vulnerable and say, you know what, I've done some learning. I'm always growing as an administrator. And I really want to change the focus of our staff meetings because staff meetings just doesn't have the same type of excitement that you would want to get from maybe a staff collaboration time, a staff huddle. And again, I brought this up at our workshop on this past week, and we shared out. I remember we said like the smartest person in the room is a room, and we run around and had them collaborate, and they come up with so many different names for how they can do rename their staff meetings. And they're like, we're going to go back and we're going to change it. And it's December. It was literally the first week of December. And they said, when we come back from winter break, I'm going to focus on that because we call it change the name, change the focus, right? Because that's really what it is. You change the name, you change the focus. And there's something to be said about what you call it, because staff meetings just don't really bring a whole lot of like excitement to the tone.
Well, and I love something you shared there, Jessica, is you said, even just coming back as the leader and using it as a term with your leadership team saying, I've been reflecting and I want to do this better. What ideas do you have? Because I think sometimes as school leaders, we hear these ideas and we're like, oh, I can take that and I can do it. And we take it and run with it and try to create something and we don't ask anyone along the way. But the way you word it, I think is such an easy way where you're not looking ignorant. You're not looking like you've been doing everything wrong. It's hey, I've been reflecting. What do you guys think? And in that moment, I've often found that when you just offer that up, I've every time been shocked by one of the answers going, oh my God, that's so good. Like I would have never thought of that. And it's like, why didn't I ask before? Because there's no risk involved. I mean, the worst thing they're going to say is, no, we don't really have anything. That's like, okay, well then I'll just Google it or go pick up a book and come up with some ideas. But I love that you said that, just owning that, being a little bit vulnerable in that moment, but in a way that lets them bring even more ideas, which guess what? When people bring good ideas about making collaborative moments better, everybody benefits.
Absolutely. And think about the credibility you get as an administrator and as a leader, because they're not going to see you as incompetent. They're not going to see you as ignorant. They're not going to see that. What they're going to see is, wow, here's a person who's leading us and doesn't have all the answers, but they're coming to us to get suggestions. And that takes a lot for a leader to do. And I think you'll get more respect from that than not.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I love that. Okay, so as we wrap up the conversation, if there is one thing you want people to walk away with when it comes to leading with collaboration, what's your one hope that they take away? Allyson, you go first.
Oh, what a hope. Oh my gosh. Okay, so one hope is that just simple changes in practice can make such a big difference. Like starting putting out the agenda and starting a staff meeting saying to everyone, what's one thing you hope to get from this staff meeting? Because that implies that they're supposed to get something from the staff meeting, right? Like, so it might be a question answered, but it also gives you insight into what they're really looking for from that meeting. And ending with, what was the most valuable part of this meeting for you? Implies that there's value in the meeting. And it also helps us end with like clarity and reflection. And that's a great exit ticket because, again, it gives us as a leader so much information. So I guess that's one thing, one takeaway is just simple changes in practice can make a huge difference.
Yeah, love that. Jessica, what about you?
So I'd like to actually share how you can actually use the book because we were very intentional about how we set it up. We set it up as a guidebook and not as a book that you read that you have to read cover to cover. And I might be really good about a grounding activity or and getting my staff, feeling included in the conversation at the beginning. Like I rock at that. I'm really good about collaborating, but I may not be so great about ending our meetings with closure, with clarity. And there's a whole section just for that. So you can go straight to that part and just go to that. And you think, okay, if I can pick maybe one thing that I can do different to enhance what I'm already doing, that's a powerful thing. So, our goal, the way when we started writing this, I think I envisioned as it would be on a principal's desk or an administrator's desk, and it would be tabbed up with the things that are beneficial and important to you at that moment.
I love that. And I think what I love about this book is you've all said it already, is that there's so many good takeaways, but you've got QR codes, you've got links, you've got resources. And so it's not just something where it's like, okay, I get all the research in this book, but now how do I put it into practice? And so I love some of the ideas you shared today. I hope people go and check out Lead with Collaboration. I know you'll also do a lot of PD over this and speaking around the country. So if people want to connect with you more, Jessica, how can they connect with you?
So I have my Instagram and Twitter handle, Mrs. Jess Gomez. I'm also on Gmail, mrsjessgomez@gmail.com. Super easy. I am, I'm available to support. And Allyson, I know I speak for Allyson. We are available to come out and support in any way possible.
Awesome. Allyson, how can they connect with you?
It's pretty simple for me too. I'm at Allyson Apsey on all the social medias, even TikTok to my son's chagrin. Or you can find me at AllysonApsey.com or AllysonApsey@gmail.
Awesome. Well, thank you two so much for joining us for an episode of TEPSA Presents. And thank you everybody for listening or watching. We hope you go connect with these two incredible leaders, continue to collaborate in new ways, and we'll see you for next month's all new episode.